The city of Los Angeles shimmered under the twilight, its neon pulse never truly dimming. Among the glitzy facades and sun-soaked streets, one name had become synonymous with luxury, influence, and a carefully curated life: Camille Hart. With over 15 million followers, her social media presence was a masterclass in perfection. From glamorous vacation shots in Santorini to candid, heartfelt moments with her golden retriever, Finn, Camille had crafted an empire built on envy, aspiration, and a whisper of unattainable perfection. But behind the filters and flawless edits, a darker story simmered, one that no amount of glossy posts could hide. On the night of June 15th, Camille hosted one of her infamous rooftop parties. The guest list was as exclusive as ever, a who's who of influencers, tech moguls, and Hollywood elites. Neon lights danced over the shimmering pool, laughter echoed against the towering glass walls, and the air buzzed with the sharp clinks of champagne glasses. But as the night unfolded, the intoxicating energy of the party took a sinister turn. At precisely 11:47 p.m., the music cut out, replaced by the echoing crash of breaking glass and a scream that pierced the pulsing bass. Partygoers, lost in their digital worlds, snapped their heads toward the sound. In the far corner of the rooftop, just beyond the glow of flickering Edison bulbs, a body lay crumpled on the polished marble floor, a dark, spreading pool staining the pristine white stone. It was Jackson Reese, Camille's personal photographer and close confidant. He had been found sprawled beside the glass railing, a jagged shard embedded in his neck. His phone lay nearby, the screen cracked, a photo half taken, capturing the chaotic blur of the final moments before his death. The police arrived within minutes, their sirens slicing through the muffled panic of the remaining guests. Officers pushed through the panicked crowd, securing the scene as paramedics loaded Jackson's lifeless body onto a stretcher. Camille, her once immaculate makeup streaked with tears, clutched her phone tightly, her hands trembling. Detectives Carla Monroe and James Hargrove, seasoned veterans of the LAPD's Homicide Division, were first on the scene. Carla, with her sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor, scanned the chaotic remnants of the party, noting the scattered glass, the overturned chairs, and the still-stunned faces of LA's social elite. James, his gray eyes taking in every detail, zeroed in on Camille, whose carefully curated world had just shattered. "Miss Hart." Carla's voice cut through the murmur of shocked whispers. "We're going to need a statement." Camille blinked, her eyes wide, pupils still dilated from shock. She opened her mouth, then closed it, a fresh wave of tears streaming down her perfectly contoured cheeks. I don't understand," she stammered, her voice a whisper. He was fine. We were just talking. He was laughing." As the detectives escorted Camille into a quieter room for questioning, James noted the way she clutched her phone, like a lifeline, her knuckles turning white around its polished edges. Back at the precinct, as dawn broke over the city, the investigation began in earnest. Jackson's autopsy revealed a shocking detail. While the fatal wound was clearly the glass shard, his body also bore signs of recent bruising and defensive wounds on his forearms. He had fought back against his attacker, but it was the contents of Jackson's phone that truly blew the case wide open. In the hours leading up to his death, he had sent a series of cryptic messages to an unknown contact. "I know what you did. Meet me tonight. I'm done keeping your secret." But it was the final, unsent message, found in his drafts, that sent chills down the spine of Detective Monroe. "I'm telling the world the truth about you, Camille. You can't hide this forever." As the investigation deepened, Monroe and Hargrove discovered a web of lies, betrayals, and buried secrets that stretched far beyond the polished veneer of Camille's digital empire. There were whispers of blackmail, hidden affairs, and ruthless ambition, the kind that only the world of influencers and social media giants truly understands. But the deeper they dug, the more they realized that Jackson's murder was not just a crime of passion or a simple betrayal. It was a carefully orchestrated execution, wrapped in the glitz and glamour of Hollywood's most followed personalities. And as the detectives pieced together the fragments of that chaotic night, they began to see a pattern, one that suggested that Camille Hart, the woman with millions of followers and an immaculate public image, might not just be the victim of a tragedy, but its orchestrator. But just as Monroe and Hargrove prepared to bring Camille in for a formal interrogation, the case took a darker turn. Camille vanished. Her phone pinged off the grid, her luxury condo abandoned, and her bank accounts emptied. It was as if the influencer had disappeared into the very digital ether she had once dominated. As the city of LA buzzed with rumors and the online world lit up with frantic speculation, Monroe received a single, chilling message on her personal phone from an unknown number. "You're digging too deep. Some secrets are meant to stay buried." The detectives had just uncovered the first layer of a twisted conspiracy, but as they would soon learn, the truth behind Jackson Reese's murder was far darker, far more dangerous, and far more personal than they had ever imagined. Detective Carla Monroe slammed her phone onto her desk, its screen lighting up briefly before the message faded into darkness. The anonymous text still echoed in her mind. "You're digging too deep. Some secrets are meant to stay buried." She had seen intimidation tactics before, but this felt different, calculated, personal. It was as if someone had been watching their every move, waiting for the perfect moment to strike fear into her heart. Monroe leaned back in her chair, running a hand through her short, practical black hair. Across from her, Detective James Hargrove studied the murder board, his fingers tapping rhythmically against his chin. Red strings crisscrossed between photos of Camille Hart, Jackson Reese, and the glittering rooftop where their worlds had collided. "She didn't just vanish," Hargrove muttered, his sharp gray eyes never leaving the board. "She's hiding, and someone's helping her." It was a slow day at the precinct when the break came. An analyst from the digital forensics team, a young, tech-savvy officer named Zoe Tran, burst into the detective's office, her eyes wide with a mix of excitement and dread. "You guys are going to want to see this," she said, dropping a thick folder onto Monroe's desk. "It's from Jackson's cloud backup. It auto-synced before his death, and it's something." Monroe flipped open the folder, her pulse quickening as she scanned the pages. It contained hundreds of pages of emails, text messages, and encrypted files, but it was a set of video files that caught her attention. Zoe leaned over Monroe's shoulder, pulling up the first video on her tablet. It was shaky, clearly recorded on a phone. The screen flickered to life, showing Jackson's familiar face, his eyes wide and panicked. "If you're watching this, I'm probably dead," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I've uncovered something big, and I can't keep it to myself anymore. Camille isn't who you think she is. She's dangerous. And if I disappear, you know who's responsible." Monroe felt a chill creep down her spine. She leaned in closer, trying to make out the details in the background. The walls behind Jackson were concrete, stark and industrial, a stark contrast to the glitz of Camille's world. "It gets worse," Zoe continued, swiping to the next file. This time, the video was clearer, the audio crisper. It showed Camille herself, pacing a dimly lit room, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. "If he breathes a word of this, I'll destroy him," she hissed, her voice sharp and venomous. "He knows too much. I made him, and I can end him." As the video played, Hargrove noticed something, a shadow moving in the background. He leaned in, his jaw tightening. "Pause it," he barked, and Zoe froze the frame. There, just behind Camille, a figure hovered in the shadows, partially obscured by a flickering neon light. A tall, broad-shouldered man, his face turned just enough to reveal a distinctive tattoo on his neck, a jagged, serpent-like symbol. "Who the hell is that?" Monroe whispered, her mind racing. Zoe zoomed in, enhancing the image as much as the grainy video would allow. The tattoo came into focus, a snake wrapped around a bleeding rose, its fangs bared. Hargrove stepped back, his face pale. "I know that tattoo." "From where?" Monroe demanded, her heart pounding. "It's a mark used by the 13th Street Syndicate, an underground network that deals in everything from high-end art theft to digital blackmail." The room fell silent, the only sound the distant hum of the precinct's fluorescent lights. Monroe's mind raced. If Camille was involved with a criminal syndicate, it explained her sudden disappearance and the network of people willing to protect her. It also meant they were no longer just hunting a desperate influencer. They were tangling with a far more dangerous enemy. The pieces started to fall into place. The frantic messages from Jackson, his defensive wounds, the carefully staged murder. It was all starting to form a terrifying picture. Camille had been more than just a victim. She was a willing player in a much larger, far deadlier game. Monroe straightened, her determination hardening. "We need to draw her out," she said, her eyes locking with Hargrove's. "We need to make her feel cornered." "How?" Hargrove asked, still studying the grainy image of the tattooed figure. Monroe reached for her phone, her fingers flying over the screen as she pulled up her own social media account. "By using the one thing she can't resist, her own image. If we leak this video, she'll have to respond. She'll have to show her face." "That's a dangerous game," Zoe warned, her eyes wide. "If she's connected to the syndicate, they won't just come for her. They'll come for you." Monroe smiled grimly, her pulse steady. "Then let them. I'm done being scared." As she hit post, sending the explosive video out into the digital world, she felt a strange sense of calm. But as her phone buzzed with incoming messages, a single notification stood out, a new, encrypted message from the same anonymous number as before. "Nice move, Detective, but you've just made yourself a target." Detective Carla Monroe's hands trembled slightly as she gripped the edge of her desk, staring at the encrypted message on her phone. "Nice move, Detective, but you've just made yourself a target." She had exposed Camille Hart's secrets to the world, ripping away the influencer's perfect digital mask. But in doing so, Monroe had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. She had thrown herself into the darkness, and the darkness had noticed. It started small, strange cars parked outside her house, her phone buzzing with unknown numbers, the feeling of being watched even in her own precinct. Then came the more direct threats. One morning, as she reached for her car door, she froze. Scratched into the metal were the words, "We know where you sleep." Her heart hammered in her chest, but Monroe didn't flinch. She had chosen this path, and there was no turning back. She would see this through, no matter the cost. As Monroe dug deeper, she discovered a critical piece of evidence buried in Jackson's Final Cloud backup, a single, encrypted email chain between Camille and figure known only as Viper. The messages hinted at payments, blackmail, and a chilling final note. "If he talks, silence him. Permanently." Monroe felt a cold sweat break across her skin. Viper. She had heard the name whispered before. A ghost in the underworld. A shadow that left a trail of blood and broken lives. Determined to end this, Monroe arranged a final, desperate meeting with her only remaining ally, the turncoat who had reached out to her. They met in a crumbling, abandoned warehouse by the docks, the air thick with the smell of rust and salt water. The man was waiting for her, his face partially obscured by the shadows. He stepped forward, his eyes hard, his jaw clenched. "You really don't know when to quit, do you?" he muttered, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "They're hunting you now. You've got a price on your head." Monroe stepped closer, the weight of her service, weapon pressing comfortingly against her side. "Then tell me how to stop this." The man exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over his stubbled jaw. "Viper isn't just a hitman. He's the syndicate's executioner. If you want to stop this, you have to cut off the head of the snake." Monroe's jaw tightened. "And where do I find him?" The man hesitated, his eyes flicking to the shadows, where the creaking metal of the old warehouse groaned like a living thing. "He's coming for you, Detective. He doesn't wait for his prey to find him." Before Monroe could respond, the darkness erupted. Shadows moved, the sudden flash of muzzle fire lit up the rust-streaked walls, and the sharp crack of gunfire shattered the thick, damp air. Monroe dove behind a rusted steel beam, her heart pounding, the acrid taste of adrenaline flooding her mouth. She pulled her weapon, her mind racing. "You've been a thorn in my side for too long, Detective." A cold, smooth voice echoed through the warehouse, each syllable dripping with contempt. "You should have left this alone." Monroe's blood ran cold. She knew that voice. Camille. Slowly, she peered around the edge of the beam, her breath catching. Camille Hart stepped into the thin shaft of moonlight filtering through a cracked window, a sleek black pistol in her hand, her perfect, manicured fingers wrapped around the grip. like a viper coiled to strike. "You ruined my life, Carla," Camille sneered, her eyes cold, her polished appearance now marred by a thin line of sweat and a wild, unhinged glint in her eyes. "You took everything from me." Monroe steadied her aim, her finger resting lightly on the trigger. "You did this to yourself, Camille. Jackson tried to warn you. He gave you a way out." Camille's jaw tightened, her eyes flashing. "Jackson was a fool. He thought he could control me. But I made him. I made all of this." She gestured around her, the shadows twisting as her voice grew more frantic. "And I won't let you destroy me." Without another word, Camille fired, the gunshot echoing like a crack of thunder. Monroe ducked, the bullet slamming into the steel just inches from her head, sending a spray of rust into her eyes. She rolled to the side, her training taking over, and fired back, her shot sparking against the concrete floor as Camille ducked behind a stack of crumbling pallets. The warehouse fell into a tense, deadly silence, broken only by the slow drip of water from the leaking roof and the distant creak of rusted metal. Monroe steadied her breath, tightening her grip on her gun. "It's over, Camille," she called out, her voice echoing through the darkness. "Come out. End this." Camille's voice came back, sharp and bitter. "You don't get it, do you, Carla? I never lose." Monroe heard the faint click of a magazine being reloaded. She gritted her teeth, her mind racing. Then she saw it, a flicker of movement in the shadows, Camille's desperate attempt to flank her. Monroe fired twice, her shots echoing like cannon fire in the confined space. A strangled cry echoed through the darkness, followed by the clatter of Camille's pistol hitting the concrete. Monroe stepped forward, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps, her eyes fixed on Camille's crumpled form, the thin trickle of blood pooling beneath her. Camille's eyes met hers, the wild spark finally extinguished. She opened her mouth, as if to spit out one last curse, but only a thin, wet gurgle escaped. Monroe lowered her weapon, her heart still racing, her ears ringing with the echoes of gunfire. She took a deep breath, the salty air filling her lungs, and whispered to herself, "It's over." As the distant wail of approaching sirens cut through the night, Monroe stepped back into the cold moonlight, her shadow stretching long and sharp across the cracked concrete. Camille Hart's reign had ended, but the scars of her betrayal, the blood she had spilled, would linger long after the lights of the city faded.